No DQ Galaxy. We are live with No DQ&A video here on nodq.com and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AaronRift NoDQ. I'm back in Michigan. It's time to talk about WWE Backlash from Lyon, France, as well as some other topics. I have questions that were sent in. Chat room, feel free to leave your comments, leave your questions. Super chats are much appreciated, and they will take priority. I will get to those right away if you send them. Anyways, guys, before we're live, pal. Before we get started, I wanted to give a shout out to Virtue, aka David Southworth, who was married over the weekend. Him and his bride are off getting ready for their honeymoon. He'll be gone for a couple of weeks. No DQ review will be back in a few weeks. Stay tuned. I wanted to give a shout out to Big Baller G, the PA sensation Greg Cherry, and of course the Cleaver Colin Andrew, who was already in the chat room tonight. Great to see those guys and their significant others. We had a great time. Loved hanging out with everybody and catching up. So shout out to all of you, and shout out to everybody tuning in tonight. Thank you for watching. And I also want to shout out Mr. Tito, who helped out on nodq.com with the live results coverage of Backlash, as well as good old JM, Jeff Meacham. Jeff Meacham filled in, did a recap of Backlash. Check it out if you missed it. Now, Mr. Tito sent in a $5 super chat. So Mr. Tito is getting the first question of the night. Mr. Tito said, do you agree with John Laurinaitis joining Vince McMahon on lawsuit pushback? Is accused possibly lying? I am very suspicious of this. John Laurinaitis, he basically turned against Vince McMahon and said that he too was a victim, and now he's going back on it. I'm no legal expert, but I'm very suspicious on that situation. As they say, money talks, money makes people do things, and I can only wonder what's going on closed doors with all these guys. Would not shock me if John Laurinaitis was influenced to change his stance. It'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out in a court of law. It's a circus. I don't really know what else to say about it other than we're going to see a lot of claims made from both sides, and my guess is it will be very dirty. Johnny Ace doesn't exactly have the best reputation. I'm not really surprised that he's going back on his claim that he was a victim and now trying to be on Vince's side again. The whole thing is just a big circus. That's really all I can say on it. And we'll see where things go with it. I think this is far from over, and we're going to have a lot more fireworks before it's all said and done. And appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Thank you for joining me. I am very grateful to everybody that watches No DQ&A video, and we're just here to talk about wrestling, have a good time. Some positivity is what I think we're all looking for here. Big G in the house. Hope you're doing well, Big G. Coming off of that busy weekend that we had and making that long drive home. I have a question here via email from Ian. He said, hey, Aaron, glad you had fun at the wedding. Thank you. Ian says, what are your overall thoughts on Backlash, and Ian said, personally, I thought it was a near perfect card in terms of match quality, and the crowd was epic. And he also said, with the success of Backlash in France, do you see WWE making multiple premium live events in France in the future? All right, so I did watch Backlash. I saw the first match live, and then I had to go for the wedding. I did catch the rest of the matches after that. I thought it was a great show. The match quality was high level, and while the matches, as far as the outcomes, were very predictable, I think that the quality was there, and the fans were next level. One of the best crowds in wrestling history. I would put them up there with London, Toronto, Chicago. Lyon, France has staked a claim as one of the greatest wrestling crowds of all time. The only negative, and this is just nitpicking, is that when they did that chant every time there was a kick out at 2, it got a little annoying after a while. But I'd rather have the fans just be passionate than sit there and not make any noise. They were highly engaged from start to finish. And there were no bad matches on the show. The wrestlers definitely did not hold back. They gave it their best efforts. The opening match, very entertaining. I mean, it was wild, brawling in the crowd. And then you had the new Bloodline member appear, which we'll talk about here in just a few moments, setting up more members potentially coming in and building towards that eventual Roman Reigns return, which is going to be epic at this point. I thought that AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes was a great main event. One of AJ's best WWE matches for sure, and definitely up there for Cody as well. Just a really fun atmosphere. And yes, WWE absolutely needs to bring more premium live events to France. 100%. That country deserves it for sure, because they brought the energy big time for this show. Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair winning the women's tag team titles. No surprise. And I love that finish with the KOD. And Jade looked pretty good given her lack of experience. I know some people were talking about how the match kind of fell apart at the end. To be honest, I didn't even really notice too much because I was just engaged with what the atmosphere and everything that was going on. Like, yeah, Jade still can use some seasoning, as they say, but people are into her, and she's like a star, you know? She is a star. She has that star presence, and yeah, sometimes people get pushed when they're still a big green, but when they're hot, you gotta capitalize on that momentum, and Jade's hot right now. Also, the triple threat, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Bayley, great triple threat. And what I really liked about that match was that there wasn't a whole lot of like one person on the outside playing dead while the other two are in. I've never been a big fan of those types of triple threats. I like when all three are in the mix for the most part. So that was really good. Tiffany Stratton, again, like Jade, she's got that star presence, and you know, she's really good. I mean, athletically, she's at a high level, and no doubt she's going to be a major player in the women's division for years to come. And then the world title match, Damian Priest defending against Jey Uso. That entrance for Jey Uso, I mean, that's a superstar right there. And the match was very good. You had your interference with JD McDonough and then Finn Balor. So that was all predictable. But I love the yeet and the no yeet when they were exchanging punches. So yeah, very entertaining stuff. And the whole show was something special. When on paper, but it was. Backlash will go down as a classic show. And I would say because of the fans, and also I think because of the fans bringing that energy, it allowed the wrestlers to feel even more inspired to go out there. And they were given a lot of time too, like only 5 matches on the show, but every match got a lot of time and focus, and they didn't really have too much filler. I mean, no real surprises like no John Cena or Charlotte Flair, despite the rumors surrounding them. But all in all, 5-match show, it kind of reminded me of a takeover. 5 matches where every match got a chance to shine. Every match was really good, and you had one of the best crowds ever. So definitely a thumbs up show. I would probably go like an A- for the show, or maybe even an A. It could have been like top 5 best pay-per-views of all time if it was a stronger card. And maybe the matches were a little bit more unpredictable. So that's what held it back a little bit, but still, overall, great show. Will go down in the history books as a very memorable pay-per-view. So thank you for that. And I know people wanted to know my thoughts on it anyways. So there you go. Building Nexus sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, would it be poetic justice if Dominic betrays Judgment Day for Liv since they convinced him to turn on his dad? There you go. You're thinking deep here with this storyline. I expect it to happen. I expect Dominic to go off with Liv Morgan, and that will set up the Rhea Ripley face turn, which I was already expecting. Like, she's a baby face. People love her, and Dominic is a hated heel. No reason to turn Dominic at this point. But yeah, you pair up Dominic with Liv Morgan, and you have the perfect setup for the turn. And yeah, Dominic leaving Judgment Day, I like it. I like Dominic betraying them, and that would definitely be very poetic. Shout out to Mr. Tito, who sent in another $5. Thank you, Tito. I appreciate it. Says, should WWE not try to bring back Uncle Howdy given the Royal Rumble 2023's disaster? Why not just have Bo Wyatt for Bray's little brother? Here's what I would like to see, and this actually ties in with another question that I had. This was from Ian. He had asked me about the character 7 in WCW. Actually, it was TJS. My apologies, TJS. TJS had sent me a question asking my thoughts on Dustin Rhodes' 7 character in WCW. Thought the entrance was very good, but the worked shoot promo was terrible. In hindsight, I'm sure you'll agree. But what did you think in 1999? So the reason I mentioned that and then Tito's question is because I feel similarities in the sense that what I would like to see with Uncle Howdy is what happened with the 7 character. Like, I want to see him come out there in the Howdy getup and then just rip off the mask, Bo Dallas, and he just speaks from the heart, and he cuts a promo and he talks about keeping his brother's legacy alive, and they're going to do something special. They're going to keep WWE on on pins and needles and raise hell with this new group. So that's what I want to see. But as far as 7 goes, I would have liked to have seen the character play out. I thought it was actually an interesting concept, and they kind of just ruined it. The thing is, Dustin, with all due respect to him, kind of needed the gimmick. Like, as just Dustin, I mean, he said it in the promo, but unfortunately it was kind of true. Dustin's a little boring. Maybe if he was booked better, Dustin could have been more interesting. But that character was intriguing. With Uncle Howdy, as Tito pointed out, it kind of fizzled out. And I actually think in this case, it would be best for Howdy to come out there and take off the mask and be Bo Dallas or Bo Wyatt, whatever you want to call him, and just let him be himself, or maybe morph into something else and not necessarily be Uncle Howdy. You know, have a new name and maybe wear a different type of mask or something like that. Have a new identity. That's what I would like to see, at least. And Keith Johnson sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, why is there a Wyatt 6 can't work without Bray? I think it can work. I know some people are skeptical because Bray Wyatt was creatively at a level that few are at. But it does take a lot of creative minds to make something work. And Bray Wyatt definitely had his collaborators, people that were working with him, Rob Fee being one of them. And if you have these same people, these same creative minds working with this new group, I do think it can work. And I think if it's clearly carrying on Bray's legacy, I think it has potential for success. But also, you don't want to just be a flat-out copycat of what Bray Wyatt was doing. You want to pay tribute to him and have that atmosphere and vibe. But at the same time, I think you want to also make it your own and make it something new. So that's going to be the challenge for them, paying tribute, but at the same time, giving us something new that we haven't seen already, and it not just being a copycat of what's already been done by Bray Wyatt. But thank you for that question. And while we're on the topic here of Bray Wyatt, Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $2 super chat, says, thoughts on the leaked members of the Wyatt 6. All right, so this is going to be possibly a spoiler. Like, if you don't want to know the people that are reportedly going to be part of this group, then skip ahead a couple of minutes. If you're watching this live, pause the video and skip ahead in a couple minutes, or skip ahead on demand, whatever you got to do if you don't want to be spoiled. So several names have come out. Eric Rowan is one of those names, and it's already been reported that he's coming back to WWE and will probably be part of whatever this new group is with Bo Dallas. I like it. I think Eric Rowan being part of it makes sense. He has a history with Bray Wyatt. I like the idea of having the group consist of people that were associated with Bray Wyatt at some point in time. Now, not all of these names rumored actually had history with Bray Wyatt. You have Dexter Lumis, who was not involved with Wyatt, but he has a similar type of character, almost like a supernatural presence to him, like a serial killer, like a horror movie character, hence Loomis, like Dr. Loomis from Halloween. So I like Dexter Lumis being in it, and Dexter, obviously the TV show as well. I think Dexter Lumis is actually a good fit because they've done nothing with Dexter Lumis as of late, so he really could benefit from something. Nikki Cross is on the list. Again, no tie-in to Bray Wyatt, but similar type of character when she was with Sanity, you know, little horror like in her character. So I think she's a good fit, and another character who hasn't really been doing much in WWE. And then we have Joe Gacy. Looks like he's going to be called up to the main roster. Again, same as the other two. They have been doing more with him. I mean, he's been pretty active in NXT, but we've all made the comparisons between him and Bray Wyatt. You know, he kind of has that Bray Wyatt like presence to him, you know, the music and everything. So yeah, I think Joe Gacy's a good fit as well. I mean, all these guys make sense being part of this group. So it's a little bit different from what I thought it was going to be with Alexa Bliss and Braun Strowman, and Eric Rowan is in it. And I was also thinking maybe they would bring in Matt Hardy. But yeah, I like the lineup, and I definitely think that it has some potential. And we definitely, I know I've criticized this line before, but I think in this case, in this era, we need to let it play out. Like in the Vince era, I hated when people said, you got to let it play out because it was Vince. But in this era, I have more confidence in Triple H's team that they'll make this a success and give the fans what they want to see. So thank you for that. Thank you for the super chats. We got some more here. Psycho Jet Black sent in $5. Thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. I appreciate it. Says, do you think Vince, or not Vince, WWE, I mean, could be Vince if he was still around. Do you think WWE has learned a lesson and not overhyped people that could become failures like Gable Steveson, and instead wait until they're camera ready? I think that they are being careful with not putting people out there when they're not ready. I mean, Gable Steveson did get that WrestleMania cameo, but beyond that, they held back with him, and they kept him in NXT. They had him do some dark matches and some live events, and just didn't work out. They were hoping for Kurt Angle, and maybe that was unfair to him, unrealistic expectations, but some people get it, some people don't. And I think after 2 years, if he's not showing really any progress, then you have to cut ties with him. And if he really loves wrestling and wants to pursue it, he'll keep doing it. But my guess is he's probably moving on to something else. Olympic gold medalist. I could see him doing MMA, and I think he'll be all right. I don't expect him to continue in wrestling, but if he wants to do it, he should keep doing it, and maybe one day something will click. But yeah, few people are like Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was one of the rare instances of a guy that just got into wrestling and it like immediately clicked, and the guy knew exactly what to do. So thank you for that, Psycho Jet Black. And Mr. Anderson sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson said, should WWE bring back Hunico to join the Bloodline with his bodyguard Camacho, and the Bloodline comes out on bikes? No, they should not come out on bikes, first of all. I would not do anything even remotely similar to what was done in the past with a gimmick that did not pan out. You know, that this is almost like a new character. You know, they may bring up that Tangaloa was previously in WWE, but I don't really think they should go out of their way to bring him up as like, oh yeah, this guy was like a very low tier WWE star in like 2011, 2012. And you know, I did get a question too about who else is going to be potentially joining this group. So to continue off of Mr. Anderson's comment, Mr. Anderson sent that in. And then we had this email question from Matthew, who was on the No DQ panel a couple of times, says, I wanted to know your thoughts on Tangaloa now being added to the new Bloodline, and could we eventually see the inclusion of Hikuleo as well? Apparently, his New Japan contract ends in June. Do you think this means we could also see Haku also return as a leader to this new Bloodline? His placement in the Hall of Fame wasn't just for show. Also crazy that the founding members of the Bullet Club are now all in WWE. I could see that as a possibility, but I don't know if they're going to do more than 4, because I'm still thinking War Games. And now we got 3 new Bloodline guys, which The Rock could be the 4th, but I think it was wishful thinking on my part to think that The Rock would do Survivor Series. If we're lucky, we'll get SummerSlam. But I don't know if Rock's going to even do a match until Royal Rumble at the earliest, if that. Like, The Rock might just come back and do one more WrestleMania match, and that's it. Who knows? I mean, it really depends on his schedule. I think WWE is probably not going to bet on The Rock being available for a whole bunch of shows. So if you're going to do War Games, I mean, you could do 5-on-5. So yeah, theoretically, you could add in. You could add in Hikuleo to the group, and you could potentially add in Jacob Fatu, and I would expect Jacob Fatu to be part of it. Haku, maybe he makes a cameo. I don't know. I mean, Rikishi was rumored for years to be making a cameo, and he never did. But yeah, Haku was part of the Hall of Fame ceremony, and I think he was strategically there because his sons were coming in. I could see them bringing in both guys potentially and having it be 5-on-5. But then you got Roman Reigns and the Usos. Who else do you bring in? I mean, Sami Zayn maybe as the return of the honorary Us. That's why I was thinking 4-on-4. But they could always find another 5th person to step in. Maybe Kevin Owens joins up with the OG Bloodline, although he was feuding with them forever. Sami Zayn was part of the group at one point. Got a $5 super chat here from Dave Scheffler. Thank you, Dave. Says, hi, Aaron. Congrats to Virtue. And when do you think Jimmy Uso comes back and tries to get back with Jay? I would not rush it. I could see Jay potentially getting involved with the Bloodline, although Jay is on Raw and the Bloodline is on SmackDown. So I don't know if they're going to collide anytime soon. But one would think that WWE could easily just do a trade or something. I would not expect it to happen until later this year. Like there's no reason for Jay to get in the mix just yet. You want to take your time with this. And, you know, I think there's a good chance it's going to be the Survivor Series main event. So probably summer, July, August, SummerSlam time, we're going to start to see some fireworks and maybe the Usos reunite. Roman Reigns comes back. You know, I think all that will start to happen in the summer to set up Survivor Series. That's my opinion on it, my prediction at this moment. I don't think it's going to happen at least for a couple of months. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Says, who knew Shorty G is still in WWE and Steveson gone? Well, there's only room for one Gable in World Wrestling Entertainment, and it's not the Olympic gold medalist Gable Steveson. Chad Gable survived. He outlasted Gable Steveson. I mean, there was a period people thought that Gable was probably going to be cut, and he managed to not only come back from that Shorty G gimmick, but actually be a serious contender in WWE again, and now the other Gable is gone. I would not have predicted that 2 years ago, I can tell you that. I thought Steveson was going to have a decent chance of making it, but didn't work out. Mr. Tito sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Tito. Says, which Bella twin would you take to Pound Town, Nikki or Brie? Well, I guess I should ask my wife what her opinion is because she's always been obsessed with the Bella twins. I guess Brie because she seems a little bit more down to earth than Nikki. I mean, that's my impression, at least, that Nikki is a bit more superficial of the two of them, and Brie's more about just being like the girl next door. Nikki's more about, being out in the town and doing all the expensive excursions. I mean, that's just the vibe I got from watching Total Bellas and Total Divas. So, yeah, there you go. There's your answer, Mr. Tito, since you had to get one out of me. Tiger sent in a €2 super chat. Says, hi, Aaron. Off topic, but what sport do you like and play? Well, I think the chat room can answer this one, and that would be nothing and nothing. The only sport I watch is professional wrestling and poker. Those are the only two sports I like. And don't play sports. Never did. Never had any interest. I was always that one that got picked last in gym class. Just wasn't interested in sports. So there's an answer to that one. And Hamp Connell sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you for that. Oh, and by the way, going back to that Bella question, if I have to listen to Brie mode, then it's Nikki, no questions asked. That's it. It's over. Hamp Connell sent in a $9.99 super chat. I appreciate it, Hamp. Says, today in history in 2002, after losing a lawsuit, WWF officially becomes WWE. That was also the same day as the infamous plane ride from hell, causing the release of Mr. Perfect. What a day that was. And Scott Hall, remember, he was cut too. I think the plane ride from hell was basically the final straw for Scott Hall. Like, he was already in hot water and not able to stay out of trouble. And yeah, there was a lot of chaos during that plane ride from hell. And then, of course, the name change. It took a while to get the F out, but eventually WWE caught on, and I don't really think of it as WWF, and I haven't in a very long time. And in fact, I call the old stuff WWE, like WWE Superstars of Wrestling or WWE Tuesday in Texas. I always think of WWE now, even stuff in the 80s and 90s, WWE Attitude. Shout out to Keith Johnson, who sent in a $2 super chat. Says, Karrion Kross and Dijak, the new members of Judgment Day. I like Dijak being part of the group. I mean, he's now part of, he's been doing good on his own, but I think he would be a really good member of Judgment Day. Karrion Kross already has his own group. And I mean, I would not put Kross with Judgment Day. I don't know what I would do with Kross at this point, because I think the faction, the Final Testament, has pretty much stunk up the joint. And I don't really see them being anything more than just lower card enhancement guys, unfortunately. I think there was a chance, but yeah, it's come and gone. Shout out to Mr. Tito. He sent in $5. He said, if your neighbor offered $50 to plant tulips, would you do it? I don't know what that's a reference to or what you're implying with that comment, but no. I don't know what it is, so the answer is no. I definitely will not say yes to anything when I don't know what that even means. So thank you, Mr. Tito, for confusing me tonight. I appreciate that. Now let's get to another email question from Caleb. Caleb sent in a two-part question. Says, since the new Bloodline isn't related by blood anymore, Do they need to change the name to reflect their direction? If the name isn't changed, how does Roman Reigns, upon returning, separate his bloodline and solos to avoid a disconnect with the fans? I don't really think that it matters if the bloodline members are actually related by blood. Keep in mind, The Rock and Roman Reigns are not blood related. They are not. They are blood brothers, as they put it, because of the family history. So it doesn't matter if they're actually blood related or not. You know, as far as they're concerned, they're all part of this family, and they have their connection. As far as Roman Reigns coming back, you know, I don't think they need to change the name at all. Like, if anything, they should be the Bloodline to piss off Roman Reigns. How dare you call yourselves the Bloodline and try to take over what I built? So yeah, I don't think they should change the name, and I like exactly what they're doing, and keep it going the way it is. It's a hot storyline. And I would not change anything as far as the name or do anything to make the group different than what it's already been. Keep doing the ones. Do what they're doing. It's working. Shout out to Muhammad. Thank you for watching tonight. I appreciate it, Muhammad. I hope you're doing well. And Mr. Anderson sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Mr. Anderson. Says, will Cody keep the WWE Championship until WrestleMania 42? If he's facing The Rock at WrestleMania, then I think he will be champion, and Rock will challenge for the title. If Rock versus Cody happens sooner, I think Rock's winning the title, and it's going to be Roman Reigns versus The Rock for the title at WrestleMania. That's my bold prediction, and I'm just going to say it now. I think Cody will be champion if Rock is his WrestleMania opponent. If Roman Reigns comes back and they do a SummerSlam rematch, I still think Cody's winning against Roman. Other than that, I don't see Cody dropping the title anytime soon. Like, I don't even know who would be that guy. But certainly not going to happen for a while. And really the only guy in the immediate future, and we're talking about like the next 6 months or so, is The Rock. Other than that, I don't see anybody beating him. Shout out to Building Nexus, who sent in a $2 or $5 super chat. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Thank you, Building Nexus. He said, do you think The Rock brought in J-O-D, God, since he considers Haku family? Okay, I know that's Gorillas of Destiny, but you cannot throw like New Japan acronyms at me, because I will miss the reference most likely. You got to tell me the whole name of the group and where they're from, if it's outside of North America, just for future reference. And Colin Andrew, the Cleaver, who I saw earlier today, also said, how long before we see the Usos versus the Gorillas of Destiny? And that's how I knew that it was J-O-D, because of not Colin's super chat, but his comment. Been a match way too many years in the making. So I think once the Usos are back together, we're going to get to see a lot of different matches. They're going to have some new opponents. And, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I definitely think there's money in bringing back the Usos. And, yeah, I think The Rock is the one pulling the strings here. I mean, they've already teased it on WWE television. And, I think that's the logical direction of this, because we got to be getting The Rock versus Roman Reigns at some point. I don't know when. I don't know if it's WrestleMania or if they're going to push it sooner or further. But it's got to be The Rock. And, yeah, he might consider Haku family. wouldn't surprise me at all if The Rock was responsible for bringing all these guys in because Roman Reigns dropped the ball at WrestleMania. Shout out to Tiger, who sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It says, how long before the fans turn on Cody Rhodes? I mean, we keep asking that question, and it hasn't happened yet. And if anything, he was massively over at Backlash. The crowd was literally singing his entire song, like everything from start to finish. And if you're watching in the United States or anywhere around the world, and you see it on your screen and you hear it, you're like, wow, Cody Rhodes is like Superman. I don't know if they're ever going to turn on him. Like Cody is red hot, and he had a great match with AJ Styles. So will American fans turn on him? Maybe. But so far, it hasn't happened, and it didn't happen last year when people thought it was going to happen, and it hasn't happened now. Now, if he's champion for a year and the storylines get stale, then maybe it could. So it's just a matter of, keeping his stories fresh and having a game plan for the future. We'll see on that one. Now, TJS sent in this question via email. He's like, long-time viewer, first-time asker. Ha, ha, ha. Very funny there, TJS. He says, it seems that WWE is breaking new records every week, whether it be social media, attendance, gates, merchandise, lucrative television deals, etc. Brad Blum, Kevin Dunn, and others from the old guard are gone. How do you think Vince McMahon feels? Deep down, he has to know that this boom period after he forced out is no coincidence. WWE was already on this boom period when Vince was still around. Remember, Cody came back when the Vince regime was still intact. And the Bloodline was hot. I mean, the Bloodline got hot during the pandemic. I mean, that's the one thing that Vince did right. He let Roman go heel. But yeah, the Bloodline was doing great. WrestleMania 32 did great business. I mean, it's gotten even hotter, but the wheels were already in motion when Vince was still in charge. Honestly, I don't think Vince really cares one way or another. Vince obviously has more serious issues that he has to deal with. I don't think he's like, oh man, I'm so bummed out that they're doing great without me. I think he's happy. I think he's happy that everyone's doing well, and that, keep in mind, this was what he built. And I think he's happy that it's in good hands, that they're doing strong without him. Like, he doesn't want to see all that work, his whole life that he put in to the business, and then just for it to collapse when he leaves. I think that's the last thing he would want. If anything, I think he would want it to be bigger than it's ever been, knowing that his creation will live on and be successful long after he's gone. Shout out to Dwayne Atkinson, who sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Dwayne. I appreciate it. It says, great bracket set for the King and Queen of the Ring. Any early prediction winners? Yes. And Calvin Bowman also emailed me a question, so shout out to Calvin. He thinks Gunther and Tiffany Stratton will win and wanted to know my thoughts on that. I mean, I think those are two great choices. I mean, I think Gunther has to be winning this to set him up for a future championship match, especially coming off of the Intercontinental title loss. He seems to be like the odds-on favorite to win for the men. And the women, I love Tiffany Stratton as the choice. She's red hot right now. I'd have to take a look at the brackets again, but yeah, Gunther definitely for the men. would be my prediction for King of the Ring. But it's loaded. I will say that the King of the Ring tournament this year, WWE did a very good job with that. I mean, just the match quality is very high. The only thing is that I wish the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring were one-night tournaments. That's the biggest downer to me. Like, I'm not a fan of just doing the final match. I like the one-night tournament where the winner has to win 3 nights, or not 3 nights, 3 matches in one night to become the king. That's my opinion. I still want King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring as one-night tournaments. And if you have to do 2 nights, why not do 2 nights? Why not have it be a 2-night event? I know that's for WrestleMania, but they could do King of the Ring on one night and Queen of the Ring on another night and sell tickets for 2 shows. And you could even add some additional matches. Like, you know, you got to have the buffer matches between rounds. You could throw like a world title match on one show and then another world title match on the other, just to make sure people tune in. But yeah, tournament's looking really good on paper, especially the men's tournament. So thank you again for that, Dwayne. I appreciate it. And Ian sent in this question. What are my thoughts on NXT Battleground being at the UFC Apex, and does this open more cross promotion with the UFC in the future? I'm not the biggest fan because it's such a small venue. How's it going to be any different than the Performance Center? Like, it's the UFC's Performance Center. I'm not sure what the hell it is exactly. I don't follow UFC, so I know it's just like it's basic little studio and they do fights there. That's pretty much all I know. Maybe somebody with the UFC knowledge can educate me on the UFC venue and what purpose it actually serves. I mean, my assumption is that it's, you know, like a training facility type of place, and they sometimes do fights there. UFC Apex, somebody with the UFC knowledge, let me know what's up with that. But yeah, it's such a tiny venue, and they did draw a good crowd for their last Premium Live event, and I think they should keep trying to run bigger venues for NXT if they can draw the fans. I mean, maybe it'll have a cool vibe, but yeah, to me, it's not really any different than the Performance Center as far as the atmosphere goes. And yeah, I'm sure we'll get more cross promotion. And, you know, this is something where the UFC is getting some publicity, and maybe we'll see a UFC event at the Performance Center. I don't know. David Phillips sent in this email question. He says, big fan, been watching since 2007. And David was wondering who I could see leaving AEW for WWE next. Can't really see MJF doing it anytime soon. Without knowing the actual contracts, some wrestlers are under contract for 1 year, others 2 years, 3 years. I think Ricky Starks is gone when he gets the opportunity. I don't know when that is, but they're doing nothing with the guy. And we saw what happened with Andrade, and of course there were reports Andrade's injured, but they never seemed to find much for him when he wasn't injured. And Ricky Starks, same thing. Miro's same thing. Miro's been injured, but then he's not really pushed. He's on TV for a week, then he disappears. He's injured. He's not injured. And it's just been very inconsistent. Like, you look at Andrade as like the template, and I think Miro's back in WWE when he's able to legally return. I think Malachi Black is back in WWE when he can come back. And here we go. Here's the comment about the UFC venue. Hosted fights during the pandemic. And it's a warehouse. It can hold around 1,000 people. So a little bit more than the Performance Center, but not much. And I agree with this comment here too. Ricky Starks and Wardlow. Wardlow has been completely ruined in AEW. So WWE, I think, could potentially do something with him. Will Hobbs is another guy. Hobbs, Wardlow, and Starks as far as the AEW originals, and as far as guys returning to WWE, Miro and Malachi Black, and probably Buddy Matthews too, for that matter. I mean, hell, the whole House of Black. Brody King is a guy that I could see WWE potentially signing as well. All those names I mentioned, I think, are very likely. And here's another one, but this is a guy that's probably not going to be able to leave anytime soon because he's an EVP and has a long-term contract, and that's Kenny Omega. I think he'll be in WWE one day. It's just a matter of when. So yeah, we're talking about like who's going to be next to go to WWE from AEW. And some of those guys I mentioned, whoever's contract is up first is my answer. And we got another question here. We got one more from Ian. He said, if Vince McMahon Sr. was alive today, what would his reaction be to Roman Reigns as a heel, having the longest reign in the modern era? I think Vince Sr. would be very impressed. During the Vince Sr. era, the WWF, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, the world champion was almost always a babyface. That's how the company drew. They had a babyface on top, and then they had a heel challenger every month to come in and fight the champion. The era has changed. Now heels have been on long, successful runs as champion. And Roman Reigns, I think, is the most successful heel champion of all time. I think back to heel champions. Yokozuna did all right, but business was pretty cold at that time. But he was a good heel champion. And you had JBL. Not a big fan. I mean, it's tough for a heel to be on top and draw a lot of money. But Roman Reigns did that. Roman Reigns was an attraction. And yeah, I think Vince Sr. would have been very impressed with it if he was able to see it. Shout out to Caleb Jacobs, who sent in a $1.16 super chat. I appreciate it. And Caleb said he really wants Kenny Omega in WWE. I think it's going to happen. And I know there's some comments in here like Malachi Black is 39. Keep in mind, wrestlers have been getting pushed into their 40s now. It's a different era. Like, it's funny because in the 90s, I remember the billionaire Ted skits when Vince McMahon and WWE would mock WCW for pushing these old fossils like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. Hogan and Savage were like in their early 40s when those billionaire Ted skits were airing. And now we got wrestlers, Bobby Lashley's pushing 50 now, and he's still a main character on WWE television. So age doesn't really matter as much as it used to. I mean, it matters when it comes to investing in new talent. Like LA Knight's been an exception. He's older than they would like. They're still trying to focus on the future and young talent. So when they're recruiting people that are unestablished, they're not going to bring in like a 40-year-old rookie into WWE. But somebody who's already established, like a Malachi Black, he'll be back. I think he'll be back at some point. And we got one more question here. I'll get to this one from Jeremiah Dorset. So this is about Jacob Fatu. I thought Jacob Fatu was going to appear at Backlash, and Jeremiah Dorset says, when do you see Jacob Fatu joining the Bloodline and making his debut on the main roster? So I thought it was going to happen at Backlash. Did not happen. I feel like we got to have the numbers game change here. Kevin Owens and Randy Orton are by themselves right now. I mean, not by themselves, they have each other, but they're outnumbered and they need a third guy. So I don't know who that third guy is at this particular time, but I could see it being 3-on-3. Maybe that's when Sami Zayn comes back into the mix. I mean, they could always do a trade or something, or Jey Uso. But yeah, I think they're going to need a third guy. And then when it's even again, 3-on-3, bam, that's when we'll probably see Jacob Fatu show up to once again make the odds in the favor of the Bloodline. And maybe that's when Roman Reigns returns. Shout out to Tiger, who sent in a €2 super chat. Says, what are your thoughts on Jim Cornette? In what sense? As a person, as a TV character, as a podcast host? Jim Cornette's controversy. He speaks his mind. He has said some offensive things over the years, no doubt. I think he's entertaining. As a person, mixed feelings on the guy. But I think he's one of the all-time great wrestling managers. And Tiger brought up his views on AEW. Hard to say because, and I feel like this applies to Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo and Jim Cornette. They all say shit that gets them views. They know how to play the game. They know that negativity is what sells. So I think they're hamming it up. They know their audience, and I think they realized years ago that they're going to get more podcast hits and more views if they're negative and if they criticize AEW. And I think they cater to that crowd and they say these outlandish things knowing that NoDQ and other wrestling sites are going to cover it because it sucks, but negativity sells. Like, people are more interested in bad news and bad coverage than something positive. So I think Jim Cornette's, playing a character online, and he says these things because he knows people will tune in. He's a great talker, one of the best of all time. And he does have some legitimate criticisms of AEW, as does Eric Bischoff. But at the same time, I also think that they pander to the people that don't like AEW, and they're overly negative by design. Mr. Tito's throwing some interesting questions at me tonight. Thoughts on Triple H calling out Fightful and PW Insider? I really don't have any strong opinion on it. I think that the reactions were funny, like how people were getting all bent out of shape about it. Like, I wish he mentioned NoDQ and Triple H bashed NoDQ. I would love the publicity. I mean, that would be my attitude, my viewpoint. Like, I don't care if people like me or hate me. I'm just doing the best I can, and it is what it is. Just trying to run a wrestling site the best I can and try to give people a good product, give them some insight, some entertainment. And Triple H, I don't think he was intentionally trying to bury those sites. I think he just, spur of the moment answers a question, and sometimes he might say something that offends somebody. If I was the people that ran those websites, I wouldn't take it personally, because they're getting more publicity and they're going to be just fine. They'll do well. They'll continue to succeed. And it was just a funny comment from Triple H. I don't think that people need to get so bent out of shape about it. Anyways, on that note, we've reached the hour mark, so I will go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. I very much appreciate it. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com this week. I'm back in Michigan. Had a very eventful week in Washington, D.C., and then in Ohio for Virtue's wedding. Had a nice little vacation. Still running NoDQ throughout that week. Don't know if people noticed any difference with anything, but I'm back to normal. We're back to business as usual, back to routine. So make sure you guys stay tuned for all the latest news and rumors, and I will be back after Raw with my thoughts on the show. Have a great week, everyone. Take care, and buy a shirt. NoDQ.com/shirts. I will see you all next time.